Well, for more insight into these humanitarian challenges, Lilling Tan spoke with the United Nations top humanitarian official, Under Secretary General Stephen O'Brien. They discussed both the financial and human cost of conflict and crises.
Mr. Undersecretary General, now you've used the word unprecedented to describe the mounting humanitarian needs that we have now. Syria, Yemen, South Sudan, the list goes on. What is your most urgent priority?
Well, the escalation that has reached now a point of 142 million people in about 37 countries need humanitarian assistance tonight. And for that, we need $23.5 billion. So it's almost invidious to put a ranking of awfulness against that. Most of this is out of conflict. It's man-made. So when you ask me what is the priority, it is to be better as a world, as global citizens, in preventing and resolving conflict, which is driving these huge numbers, this exponential humanitarian need, where the world is being generous in both the workers addressing it and providing funds, but the gap is getting so much wider.
So how do you overcome that? We're talking about a 60% funding gap right now. You mentioned $23.5 billion needed for the year, only 40% met. How do you get the world, that has already been generous, as you said, to cough up more?
Well, we have to continue to make the case and to demonstrate that with the money that has been made available, we are reaching people. We can make a difference. We can save their lives. It's not just morally the right thing to do, of course. It is because by addressing humanitarian needs, you are making the world a safer, more secure place. That is in everybody's interest. So yes, making the case. But equally, we have to do a much better job at reducing the amount of need, not just from these man-made conflicts, but also the exacerbation that comes from climate change upon the natural cycles of seasonal things like drought, which is having a major effect on the orbit conflict settings of 4 areas of threatened famine in the world at the moment, where the most stark is in Yemen, but also we have Somalia, South Sudan, northeast Nigeria, where drought conditions, exacerbated in some cases by climate change, are meaning that we have in those 4 countries, Yemen, I have to say, is all man-made, it's not driven by drought, we have 20 million people who are at risk of being unable to feed themselves and of starvation. Now, we are doing a good job by getting out there, making the case, attracting funds and getting the action well-led and well-coordinated, acting together and collaboratively to really make sure we can avert these famines.
Now, you've been in this role since 2015. What has been for you the most frustrating aspect of this work in terms of delivering and making sure aid reaches the people that needs it? Is it the funding? Is it the distribution, government bureaucracy, attacks on aid workers? What has been the one that angers you or makes you most frustrated?
Well, of course, it is all those things, and conflict settings makes it extraordinarily difficult to have safe, unimpeded access. Now, the big challenge is that aid workers, be they in the UN or in the international NGOs, and when it comes to killing aid workers, the vast majority are in the national NGOs within countries. This has become so much more prevalent. So when you ask me what's my biggest frustration, it's the fact that our access, our ability to reach the most vulnerable, the most in need, and that is, of course, again, something which we've all agreed to do in the SDGs, which the world has signed up to, is to make sure we leave no one behind and that we should get to the people who need us most first. And that is put at risk every time there's an attack on a health worker, on a humanitarian worker, where the UN flag and the light blue beret is disrespected. And that, of course, means that we're set back from our ability to translate the generous financial resources into programs that deliver the life-saving and protection of civilians.
What role do private institutions play now, and what bigger role can they play?
Well, private institutions are absolutely vital. They bring huge expertise, a real commitment and a clarity about the efficient way of delivering. It's more difficult in conflict settings, of course, in natural disasters and response to the natural hazards. It's somewhat easier because of the issue about the safety of their own people, but bringing technical expertise is very important. The scale of financial resources does, however, tend to have to come from governments through their donor agency arms, which is, of course, funded by the much broader access to public taxation. And that's where we as global citizens are able to make a massive contribution by, through our taxes, contributing to the relief of terrible human suffering and making sure that we put in place, both as humanitarians and increasingly in programs which move on a sustainable basis down the development track to supporting people so their needs are reduced over time.